That's what's kind of funny, actually. I got to work it out. I don't really script any of this. Welcome back to Brad's Car Mods. This is wiring day. We're doing wiring. I did in the last video a bunch of these things I knocked out and then kind of stopped because I realized that if I did the intake and I did the fuel and a couple other things, it would kind of be in the way trying to get to, for the wiring part, the starter and the alternator and a couple things underneath the intake. So I skipped those things. Carl's here.
Hey guys.
There's Carl. We've never wired an entire car before. So a lot of times on these more complex projects like this, two heads are better than one. We kind of talk through these processes together, wrap our heads around what the overall plan is, and then kind of divide and conquer. Overall, real quick, the plan is I don't have to remove the dash on this car. This wiring harness that I have here from K-Power Industries is awesome, and it's kind of their V2, if you will, where it literally runs through the firewall. There's a connection in there. So there's the engine bay side that kind of drapes over the engine and goes to the injectors, the starter, the alternator, all the sensors. And then on the inside, it runs up into the dash. And actually, you can take the dash pod out and connect some wires into the back of the dash, and all the factory gauges work. And it has a provision long enough to go into where I'm going to put the wiring, or the Haltech ECU, which is, they say the glove box, but we're going to put it in the passenger side airbag compartment. There's no airbag on this car, so we're going to mount it there. We're going to divide and conquer. I'm going to go on the inside of the car and do the inside stuff. He's going to be in the engine bay, knocking that stuff out. By the end of this video, we're going to start the car. That's this video. We're going to start the car. Dyno runs and actually tuning and all that fun stuff will be the next video, but in this video, like and subscribe or make sure you're subscribed, because the goal is to start this car finally. Wiring first, testing everything out, of course. Oil, put the intake on. Still need to hook up the coolant and put the radiator in and all that stuff, but those are all just final bits, honestly. Wiring is the big thing. We got to get past that, so make sure you subscribe, because that's what we're going to be doing. Before we get into the wiring, he hasn't seen some of this fun stuff. I read through all the instructions, and I was really intimidated by this wiring job. But after reading through the instructions, this harness was expensive. It was like $2,200 or something crazy. But I wanted to go that route because this should make it easy. He has seen the wiring harness. I think in the last video, actually, I went in pretty depth on what's all in the box. So I won't go through that right now, but OEM injectors. So this will tie into the Honda injectors on top. This is all for the dash. So this kind of runs up in and we plug it into the back of the dash. And then here's all the fun bits that go in the engine bay and then split and go actually inside the dash. All pre-done and all labeled and ready to go. The fun stuff is this Haltech ECU. And the reason why we went this route, you can do a couple of things. You can go Honda, which is you take a Honda ECU from like an Acura RSX and you swap out and you put in a chip in there basically, and that allows you to do a lot of programming and tuning and stuff. Haltech is more expensive. However, it's way more advanced, way more modern. You can do fun things such as auto blip on downshift. I can do, what was the other one that I sent a thing to Sam earlier? What was the other one? It was, so rev match on downshift. Oh, and no lift shifting if I want to do that. Cool. Like this has some really cool stuff that we can do. All right. 2 boxes. This one here is a Bosch wideband controller, so this will help us with the tuning. It's actually pretty straightforward. It comes with this little distribution block it's a wideband controller, and it connects to the ECU via whatever cable here. And then there's actually this Bosch sensor. So this goes into your O2 sensor. It literally comes with a bung if you need to weld it in to your exhaust. Sweet. And then all the connections, which is it's all made for, so they've got a couple different harnesses for this. This one is specific to going to that Bosch wideband. They've got like a generic one. Of course, we went with this one. Then this is the fun bits. Look at this. This thing is awesome. Warning, performance enhancing technology inside. Before I open this, by the way, Haltech. I've been a fan of Haltech for a long time because of the Mighty Car Mods guys and because they work with Haltech all the time. And so Tuning Fork Scotty and now I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Shit. The wiring guy. Dave the wiring guy. Those guys are always on the show and they're awesome. And the Mighty Car Mods guys go to Haltech, their dyno, and they sit in the dyno, and Scotty is on the keyboard doing the tuning, and it's just, I'm a huge fan of that show and Haltech in general. Warning, performance enhancing technology inside. So this is the actual Haltech ECU. It's got the provisions on the back to go with the wideband stuff, and actually that plugs in here. USB connection to the laptop. And then the wiring harness is specifically from kpower to pre-wired to work with the Honda, the Mazda side, and the Haltech side. So that's why this harness was so expensive, is because it's kind of a three-way harness, if you will, between the Mazda, factory gauges and clutch switch, brake switch, all that kind of stuff. Honda injectors, Honda sensors, knock sensor, all that stuff, and then Haltech on the other side. So, which is pretty cool. Nice. That's the first time either one of us have actually held or seen one of these in person. I know it's just an ECU. Maybe you guys have seen these before, but I don't know. I think it's a really cool.
Well made.
Yeah, it's well made. The thing is, there's a lot of ways to do this engine swap, and for us, this is the first time we've done an engine swap, and I think some of the fun stuff isn't necessarily putting the engine in, it's being able to use a modern ECU like this, take it to the dyno and get it tuned. Take this car, if you will, way to the next level. Not just add horsepower, but take it to the next level. And like I said, being able to, this is a 99 car. They didn't have things like auto rev matching and stuff like that. And so bringing it into the modern era with one of the best chassis ever made.
Right.
And adding the proper power to it and all that stuff, I think is what gets me excited about this whole project. I think in here is there's some quick start guides in there. Of course, the mandatory stickers, which I'll definitely put on my laptop and somewhere else. Oops.
Put this back in here so I don't drop it. I have a habit of dropping things.
I don't know, what do you think?
It's pretty awesome. Like you said, I think it's going to be fun to get to tune and see what it can do.
Yeah, I can't wait to actually hook the laptop up with the USB cable and turn it and key it on for the first time and have it boot up and actually connect. And when we go to test everything before we start it, we're going to turn off the fuel pump. We're going to turn off a couple of things within the ECU so that we can go, okay, does the fuel injectors work? Test those. Yep. And when we go to pump oil through it for the first time, we don't want it to start. So we'll turn it over a couple times, get the oil pump to go, and just make sure everything works mechanically before we actually try and start it. And just stepping through that process through the software, learning that for the first time, I think is going to be freaking cool.
Absolutely. So many times you see shows like this and you see their excitement the first time it starts or whatever. And yeah, that's exciting on our end as fans, but to actually do it for the first time, I think we're all ready for that.
I've got a list of people, by the way, who are said, notify me when you're going to start this car. So later on in the episode, when we go start this car, there'll probably be a crowd here. I can't wait. So let's get into this thing, man. Yeah, so one last thing before we actually get into the wiring is, and before we start the car, we do have to have some kind of exhaust. I don't have to have the full entire exhaust set up. But we do at least need to have the header installed so we can do an open header, initial startup, which will be cool. Carl's not seen this yet, and I haven't shown it on the channel either. I just got these in the mail the other day, so here's our gaskets. Check this out. Yeah.
Nice.
So that is a, almost everything has been purchased through K-Power Industries. And the reason why is because they've got a complete solution for everything. In this car, the exhaust moves from the driver's side to the passenger side, the exhaust manifold side of the engine. However, the exhaust still needs to run down the driver's side of the driver's side tunnel for the exhaust. So it needs to be a compact solution. The reason why we went with the subframe is for that reason, so that there's plenty of room in there. This header, if you look at it, it's pretty tight as far as how it curves down. And then the connecting piece, which is all connected via V-band, so we go 4 into 2 into 2 into 1 collector. And so you can see, if you look at this, it wraps around the engine essentially to go out the other side.
Nice.
So that's what makes this kit awesome and worth it, to be able to do that.
Like that.
And then the last part.
That's a really nice piece.
Not freaking sexy.
A lot nicer than other stuff we did on my old car.
Yeah. And then the last part is this, which just goes from that collector. So it goes 3-inch all the way back, a little bit of a flex pipe in there just to give it some wiggle room, because the Honda motors are pretty vibration heavy motors. And K-Power says that, you know, headers can crack and stuff like that if you go rigid. So flex pipe in there. From here back, actually, Sam, you've seen him on the channel a couple times. He's actually interested in automotive fabrication and welding, and is in metals class in high school and stuff. And so we've decided we're just going to build our own exhaust from here back, essentially, which will be pretty cool. We've got a welder here. He's got some experience. We're going to buy some Vibrant Performance parts for the exhaust with some 3-inch tubing in between, and custom fab our own exhaust.
We can get that done.
Which I think will be awesome. So
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah. Okay, step 1 is to literally take the wiring harness out of the box and lay it here on the floor, because again, we've never done this before. I want to take everything out of the packages. There's that. And then lay everything out just so we can get our heads wrapped around what parts go where and why.
It looks like it's to your fan, so that's later on.
Yeah, everything's labeled, so
that means this side is engine bay, this side is behind the dash.
Yeah, so go ahead and lay it on the floor.
All right.
So yeah, basically the way this sits is like this in the engine bay. The other fuse box is right here. This red wire goes up underneath that fuse box and goes right here. We disconnect or undo that bolt right there, and that red wire connects right there.
Sneaks in there.
And then there's already bolt holes right here. We can mount that plate. Excuse me.
Get that to sit where it's happy.
And like you said, yeah, this grommet replaces the one that's already in the firewall, so we can rip that out.
Okay.
These will just lay across. They're all perfectly labeled. Oh, I'm curious. That's probably just a ground.
Well, it's got a deal on it. What does it say?
I think that.
Yeah, it's ground.
That's a ground.
That's ground. And that will probably just line up with something as it naturally lays once we start lining up your sensors.
Yeah, and then one of these probably, I don't have to guess, we can look at the labels, but one of these will go to the...
That's your fan lead.
Oh, fan, okay. One of these will go to that wideband sensor, that Bosch wideband sensor, which, by the way, will probably mount this in the firewall on the engine bay side. This can be mounted, they said, like this.
Okay.
Somewhere up there. And then it'll hook into the harness, which should go...
So that goes into an O2 sensor on which side of the engine once the exhaust is put in?
Right here.
Okay.
It'll go right down here probably. Oh, I see what you're saying. On which side of the engine?
That's right.
Grab that.
After it goes across, I saw a bung.
Yeah, there's already a bung in here.
Yep.
It's right there.
And that's on the other side of the engine then.
You're right. It is on the other side of the engine.
So I would mount it on this side somewhere if we can.
Because there's another wire in here, this longer one. this longer wire. I think it's that one. Oh, there's one in the box here too. It's probably this one.
So
this one will go from here to the ECU. So that will run through the firewall with everything else, I think.
Yeah, because this guy here is a 6-pin, so that's going to plug in to here.
Yep.
That's a 6-pin, and these are both 4.
This one labeled goes to the ECU, and this is where I get my constant power.
So that's a 4-pin. So but that's a male. Okay. All right. We're not there yet. Okay.
So I think we got the lay of the land.
And I think after talking earlier, we're going to go ahead and decide to do the jumper from the starter to the alternator, right?
Yes.
To try to keep it clean.
Yeah, let me come back over here actually. So when the wiring, when we wire in the starter here, the factory sub harness can come around from the Miata. It can go into here, and then you can use the alternator wire, but you have to extend it, or they said you can, the instruction said you can literally do a jumper between here and here, because this just needs 12 volt power, so it doesn't need anything special. So I think that's what we're going to do, because that'll be a clean way to do it.
Yep. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
All right. So
the one thing I'm a little confused about is I thought this whole entire thing split into 2, so that, but it doesn't. It goes straight through the firewall. So we need to snake everything in.
I think you're easy. It's going to be snake that into the firewall from the outside.
That's a pretty big plug, though. This plug here is a pretty beefy. Is that going to go through the hole?
It'll go through that hole. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Yeah, those go through.
Because then once this goes through, then there's this wire, this plug here, plugs into this guy.
Yep.
And runs up through the dash. And these wires here connect into the back of the dash pod to run all the factory gauges. Yeah, go ahead.
So it looks like here, clutch switch.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. These are, there's our tack pickup, brake switch.
So this will just run basically from the passenger side over the driver's side and up into the driver's side. So I feel like, I don't know, what do you think? I feel like we're pretty comfortable here with where things need to go.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So now what we can do is divide and conquer. So he's going to start in the engine bay, and there's some cleanup that has to be done here. This is the old harness. This is the old charge harness, and here's the alternator starter wire, so that'll have to get run over there. This grommet here will get removed because that's where the new stuff's going to run through the firewall. All this can be removed. This is old Mazda harness.
And then I need to figure out how to snake that red wire up into the other box and how that's going to live.
Yep. There's a spot right here for it.
Yep. There's a gap. Good.
Yeah, so we can just remove some of that tab a little bit. That plate can go away. We don't need that. It's not connected to anything. There's 2 bolts.
Okay, I'll get rid of that.
Then
we'll go from there.
I'm going to be in the interior. I don't want to brag. I'm a little more flexible than
fat.
Carl is. I didn't say fat. I said flexible. I said flexible. I said flexible. So I'm going to remove the glove box, the center console, because there's a wire that runs underneath the center console and up into where the fuel pump on these cars, and I got a video on replacing it so you can see it, but underneath this panel is where the fuel pump sits, and there's a hole that goes through here for some wiring. They actually provide a wire that runs underneath the console and goes up into the fuel pump to bypass the existing fuel pump wiring to make it beefier so that you can upgrade to a higher horsepower fuel pump or higher flow fuel pump for higher horsepower cars. That way you're not reliant on kind of the smaller wiring and stuff. So I'm going to run that. So take the center console out and then take the gauge pod out. I'm going to pop the steering wheel off as well because it'll just kind of be in the way. And then finally, there's no airbag in this car. It was like that when I got it. So that is actually where the ECU is going to live. The Haltech's going to sit in there, so we'll run all the wiring. They recommend putting it in the glove box anyway, so it's conveniently right there. But also, I also don't have a airbag. So I think that'd be a cool mounting place. I got the pod that goes on there. I can keep the USB cable to connect to it all curled up in there. And man, Carl's working already. I love it. That's why I invite him. Time to start taking things apart. He's way ahead of me.
All right.
Funny enough about this glove box is I've had this several times where I pulled it down and it just fell out in my hand.
And then
now,
try to do it.
Now I try to do it.
Normally you've got to push in one of the sides.
Yeah.
There's a little doohickey there.
That's what I was trying to do.
All right, so now I need a pair of cutters. Goes the other way. Darn. All right, so now I have cutters, which is down here. That's what I'm looking for. Nope. Some just regular old dikes.
Was mic'd up this time, and he likes to talk to himself while he's working.
So that happens.
You get the Carl banter while he talks through things.
Totally forgot I had that in there, Brad. Thanks.
Honestly, though, that's kind of the. I wanted to switch over to recording both of us while we're doing this kind of stuff because of that exact. The reason why we have fun doing this is because of that. Like,
well, a lot of times too, we'll have the kids not mic'd, and they'll come up with a one-liner that, you know, we'll talk about a year from now.
Yeah, and then we miss.
The red button?
Yep.
It's right there.
Set that up there somewhere. Once I pull this gauge cluster out, there's just one chunky cable behind it that connects it to things.
Yeah, you're there. No, it's
That's a couple.
3, and that looks like.
Try not to scratch it here. Ouch. Can you set that up there somewhere safe?
Yep.
Careful with the bag. Yeah, so the old wiring harness required that we remove the whole entire dash. Now we don't have to. Instead, we're going to run a wire from here, and we're just going to take, I think it's this one, the smaller one, and we're going to cut some of these wires, and we're going to splice in a new connector that will get the signal from the ECU to run the factory gauges. The factory gauges actually stay in place, which is awesome. Last thing I got to do is I need to remove this guy, the center console, and then that. And then actually, shine the flashlight down here. I think that blower right there needs to come out too.
This one?
I think so. That'll give us access to. I can see the wiring behind there. So yeah, we need to pull.
Is it that or this box?
I think both. While I pull this center console, you want to go and flip to the beginning of the instructions. I think that's what it says on there.
Okay. Yep.
I'm not going to record pulling the center console out. It's been out many times. Go watch one of my previous videos. A bolt and a couple of wires and the name link fall out.
And it will. Sweet. That's what we like to hear.
This thing needs a good scrubbing and cleaning anyway. It's disgusting.
Oh, your blower motor?
Yeah. Ew.
I wonder how much black mold you got growing in that thing. I'm just going to do it like this. Tear it off. That one going through. All right, pull. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was putting that. Those grommets just disintegrated. Well, the top one did. It's all right.
That's what was holding us up. Is this heater core is disgusting, but also coolant goes through here and gets the warm coolant. That's the hot water in the system goes through here, and then you blow. The blower fan blows air across that.
That is your AC condenser.
Oh, that's AC condenser? Not.
Your heater core's up here.
Oh, my bad. AC condenser. Sorry. So cold air goes across here. The fan blows across there and pumps cold air up into the system. So this is all AC stuff. But I will need that fan at some point to have heat. That runs the fan for the whole system, right? Not just the AC?
Yeah, let me look at this. So, if you're not going to have AC in the car, I said we bust this box, we take this out of here, put the box back together, it becomes ductwork. You've got less obstruction.
Ductwork is kind of, yeah, so
that's what I'd do.
I'm with you. I don't plan on putting AC back in this car. It had it before, but to do it with the Honda motor, I'd have to do an electric AC system, which kpower sells, but it's not worth it, I don't think. I'm with you, though. That's duct work for the fan to work to run the defrosters and to get heat in the car.
And we already cut the lines off it, so the condenser's no good, so we might as well remove it.
Sorry.
Just get rid of it. So, all right, so can we see the backside of the wiring harness going through the firewall right here? I need to have this on, don't I? So we have the removal moment. Yep, all right.
Yeah, it's just wiring.
Great.
It goes over to that side.
Okay.
So, dude, I literally should be able to just cut all those wires. You know what I'm saying? I know you're and I am usually hesitant to do something like that.
So, okay.
Let's go look on the driver's side, I guess, and see.
So, I agree, only because every wire that's coming through here is on the harness you said we remove. However, cutting all of those, you're going to have to put some kind of end on all of them so they don't...
Well, no, I'm saying it runs through here. It's a bundle of wires that goes through the dash and goes that way. So
let's see if there's a plug.
Either unplug them from over there and pull everything out, or we cut it and still pull everything out, but it's easier to do.
Right. Let's see if we can find that plug first on the car. So I'm going to hand you that one first, probably, because it's the longest.
Yeah.
So let's get that through the hole. Right there.
All right, this is the
pull.
fuel pump wire.
Pull. All right, stop. Now,
I'll feed that through there.
Okay. Keep pulling. And next, I guess. Okay. Do you see these connectors I'm sending you?
Yep.
That firewall's sharp, be careful. All right. Now I got some more, hold on, I got a...
Ow, hang on, stop.
Sorry.
My finger's caught. Don't pull on it.
I'm
There
not.
we go, all right.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
There's some more to follow behind. This one is a pretty big black one here, going in the hole. You see
I think
it?
you're good to go ahead and shove. Yeah, go ahead. Push.
All right.
Push, push, push. Giving birth to some wires in here. One more big one. Push. Hey!
All right, so now,
I think it's a boy.
is it? All right, pull the fuel pump wire again for me. All right, now start pulling the whole harness. Hold on, stop. All right, now pull. Slow down. Big connector's coming at you, the white one.
We got a black one and then a white one. Okay,
Yep.
there we go.
The white one was bigger than the black one this time.
Yeah, the white one is bigger than the black one. That's normally
Don't believe everything you hear.
the other way around.
All right, so we've got 6-8 inches until we're to the grommet.
Okay, feed it.
Feed. Hold on, I'm hung up in the engine compartment. All right, go, stop. I'll pull you up and over, out of my way.
Booyah, we got all kinds of wires. These are all gonna live right up here.
And grommet fits the hole. Brad,
Is the grommet in?
It's in.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, look at you.
You're already in, dude. Come around and get a shot of it. Done.
No, look at that. That's beautiful. Progress is being made.
All right, now I can start on the fuse box.
Yep, I'm going to, I may need your help. This wire needs to be fed through. I'm gonna start on the other side. This is all it needs to go through.
So now the problem is, which fuse do I pull?
It's the engine fuse.
Oh, I know, but I can't read it.
Oh. Is it worn off or?
No, it's tiny and upside down.
Oh, well, take a picture. You need my phone to take a picture of it and zoom in on it? Might help.
What would help was if I had eyeballs that were 10 years younger.
Who you telling?
Or glasses. All right, engine fuse is that guy. So pull him, and then this guy comes in. Come here. And then just like that. So now we've ran a wire up here to plug in directly to the engine fuse so that we feed that information. That's freaking great. I should have ran that behind there. Damn it. Okay, let me get my fingers in there.
All right.
And then I'm gonna, yep, there's,
Hold on. It's too big for the hole.
no, yep, go back.
Come on, Phil.
Ow, that kind of hurt.
What are you
Easy,
doing?
gentle. There you go, can you feel it?
Yeah, I got it. It's in my
Got,
hand.
you got it in your hand? Pull,
Yep.
go ahead and pull through. Sweet,
And
easy.
it's
Move
lining
my
up.
hands, yeah.
It's done.
It's done. Oh, that was good.
There you go.
And weird.
And weird. Oh, you know you get along well when you hold hands in the car.
Okay, I removed this metal tray here. So the fuel line, the new fuel line that's bundled up there, I'm gonna run underneath here, run through those wires, run into that grommet right there, and then we can put this back basically and then take this off and then actually get to where the fuel pump is. But there's like a little grommet right there that maybe you can see in there that I'll feed that wire through. It'll fit through with the rest of them. So pretty slick setup, I think.
Needs to go in the, isn't it?
It's a new day. Carl's here. We got Sam out here this time. We got a list of about 10 or so things to button up in the car. Starter wire, alternator wire. This entire intake system is ready to be assembled along with the fuel rail, injectors, fuel system, and we can put, once we get the starter and alternator wiring all done, because the intake sits over the top of it, then we can put the intake assembly on there. So Sam's gonna work on assembling that on the carpet over here for a minute. Then we can actually move on to the exhaust side and put the exhaust on, wideband sensor, a couple other odds and ends to go through the firewall and plug into the Haltech. Heater hosing, heater routing, heater hose routing, whatever. Once we're done with those things, then we can actually go through and hook the laptop up to the ECU and kind of go through the test procedure before we start it. And then we can do things like put oil in the car and all the fun stuff and actually prep for starting the car for the first time. So divide and conquer. So believe it or not, this giant mess of wires is progress being made. We had all this wiring done into this fuse box. However, we need the Miata starter wire, which is that big chunky wire right there, moved over to the starter side. And we're going to jumper a wire from the starter to the alternator to feed the alternator. But in doing so, trying to get that big chunky wire over here, it's tied to a whole bunch of other wires. And we know that we cut some wires that went through the firewall and for the dash, at least one wire up there feeds the alternator dummy light, right? So if you are not charging properly, the battery's not charging the alternator, you want to know that, so you need a light to go off on the dashboard. Well, we spliced in to the wiring loom that goes to the Haltech ECU. So when trying to disassemble some of this, there was a couple of unknown wires, specifically the one that runs, this is the alternator wire for the Miata loom. One of these wires goes to the fuse box. The other wire goes all the way up and goes into the dash. Well, we just realized that we spliced into that to go to the Haltech instead. So we're able to now, and the large white wire there is the old Miata alternator wire that we will not need. So it looks like a mess, but with Carl disassembling a lot of this, we're able to eliminate at least 2 or 3 wires out of this entire bundle. And then I've got some replacement of that loom he just took off, that loom plastic cover, that will be able to shrink down to a smaller size and help clean up this engine bay and also be able to free up that starter wire so that it can be routed over here a little more efficiently, a little easier, so we don't put as much strain on all the wiring loom. So backtracking just a little bit, but we'll end up with a cleaner, easier to troubleshoot in the future result. Well, it is a brand new day. It's beautiful outside. So I came out. Carl's not going to be back for a couple of days to help me finish things up, but there's a couple of odds and ends that I can just finish myself. We ran the wiring up into the back of the gauge cluster, and there's a couple of wires that just need to be spliced in, and then that can be finished, and there's a diagram right here to do that. So I'm going to knock that out real quick, and then I ran the wire to the fuel pump back there. I did order a new fuel pump so I can go with a little bit higher flow fuel pump. And in doing so, the kpower harness supplies a thicker gauge, a little bit heavier wire to be able to manage a larger pump. So that's what I ran underneath the console. It just needs to be basically, there's a new connector that swaps out the hot on the existing connector for the new wire. That's it. You just plug that in, and power is then supplied that way versus the old one. Really easy, but I haven't done that yet. All the wires ran up in there. I just didn't actually plug in the actual connection yet. So I'm going to do that real quick too. And that should finish things up in here as far as this side. On the other side, we still need to put back, kind of route all of the wires up where the ECU is going to go. Before we do any of that though, I want to get the ECU plugged in and we'll get the power ran. So that'll be a secondary thing once Carl gets here. That way everything is still out, and if I put the gauge pod back and put like the blower motor and stuff like that for the HVAC system, if I put all that back and there's something we have to troubleshoot, then we have to take it back apart, and it's better to turn the car on and start it and do all the testing while everything is still visible and easy to get to, easily accessible, so that if there is an issue, we can troubleshoot it quickly. If it's a wiring problem, we can track it down pretty easy, all that stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna knock out these wires and a few other odds and ends that I figured out in the engine bay before Carl comes back on Tuesday. I think I am gonna have to have Sam come out and help me though, because these wires are all color coded, and guess who's colorblind? So trying to figure out what wire. It says here on the instructions, green and orange wire goes to the green wire. Well, that's hard for me to figure out. So I'll have to bring Sam out here to help me. Sam. Well, that was another one of those long head scratch evenings where we thought we were going to make a lot more progress than we did, but ultimately we ended up learning more about how this wiring is set up and how it should be set up for this application. And so we ended up pretty much shutting the cameras off last night and kind of just, as old guys do, stand around here and scratch and talk and try to figure out the next steps, which is, and that's where we're at right now. Basically, we were able to cut a lot of old wiring out of the wire loom that we just no longer need, that would have been there in the car just sitting there doing nothing. It really cleans up the wiring on the engine bay side, or on the side over here where the fuse boxes are and the main harness comes through. The reason why we had to do all that, though, is the original starter wire that we're reusing for the Miata and to run to the Honda starter is on the other side of the car. To get that wire over there, we had to kind of cut back some of the loom to make enough room, and we started to realize there's just a bunch of extra wires we don't need, so that was a good opportunity to cut things out. That's kind of the lesson of this car and any kind of build of this level. There's always a case for just make it work and come back later and fix it and clean it up. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get it to work and then you just move on and you never come back and clean it up. We are trying to take every opportunity we can while we're building this car to do exactly that. While we're in here, that's why I painted the spots that I painted, because while everything's out of the engine bay, I can scrub it down and paint it and it's fine. And it increases the scope of the project a little bit and takes a little bit longer, but I'm in no rush. I'm not doing a SEMA build. As Tony Angelo says, I'm not going to lose the shop because I didn't finish the build. So Carl and I, one of the reasons I love working with Carl is because he's very methodical. If you say, hey, let's just get it done, he'll do that. But I put him on the wiring because I trust that he will go through this and do it correctly. And while we had delays on everything else because of this wiring, it's okay. It's getting done correctly. That said, it was late last night. We knew we were at a stopping point because in order to finish the wiring, we need to extend this one wire a little bit. So I needed some connectors and some wire to do that. We've got the wire. I've got the connectors. I went to the store today. I got some stuff. The engine also needs a couple of grounds, like 3 critically important grounds. One to the timing chain cover, one to the block, and one to the transmission. All those need to go to the chassis. And then there's this one here on top that goes to the valve cover. There's one back here. Those two are done, but the other, I didn't have the wire and connectors to make those other grounds. So what I'm going to do now, while I'm here by myself, Carl's at work, Sam's inside sleeping like a teenager does. I'm going to just turn on some music with my lady in a tube and start a time lapse, and I'm going to make 3 custom-made, basically, ground connections for the different spots on the engine to the chassis. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to extend this wire, run that starter wire over on that side, and then get some more wire. I've got extra wire loom here, this tubing here actually, and kind of clean this up a little bit. And then wiring should be done. Then we can move on to the other stuff. And we did a great job, you know, making good progress on the intake manifold and putting everything together. So once we get all the wiring done on that side, we'll be able to just bolt the intake manifold on and be done. So made a lot of good progress, just not where I wanted to be, but that's okay. It's going to end up being a better end result anyway. So let's go with the music. All right, that's one ground done. The first ground I did was for the block to the chassis. This ground needs to be from the timing chain cover to the chassis. So I'm going to undo that bolt. And then there's just on the side of the chassis over here, there's already an unused bolt basically. So I'm gonna scratch the paint off right here and make good contact and just reuse this not used bolt hole. Okay, the last of the 3 grounds is gonna go to the transmission. It's gonna go from this other spot, another spot on the chassis that happens to have threads in it, which is awesome. So all I gotta do is scrape the paint off. And then the wiring harness that comes from the back is the charge harness that runs along the PPF and along the transmission. There's a little metal bracket that holds the wiring harness in place. It's like a plastic clip that fits on the bracket, and there's a bolt that goes through that and bolts directly to the side of the transmission. I'm going to reuse that. I'll back that off and I'll squeeze the other end of this in between the bracket and the transmission, and then use the bolt and hold it all together. And you can see it's only like 16 inches, maybe 14 inches, something like that. Not a huge length of cable, and it goes right around the kind of the top of the transmission there, and it's perfect. I know that this is not, I said before all along, this K-SWAP series in my Miata is not an instructional video. However, the instructions don't really cover, it just says you can do this. It doesn't really give you any pictures or any steps. Well, there you go. Alternator to starter, starter from the original side. This wire will go around, like I said before. I'm gonna take some of this shielding and I'll lengthen this wire and we'll run that along there and put some more shielding on it, the little the corrugated stuff, and be able to clean everything up, and we're done. All right, I forgot to turn the camera on, but I went ahead and grabbed the intake manifold that's already got the fuel rail mocked up, and holy bleep! Holy shit, that looks really good. I'm excited. So obviously fuel rail, and then I've got an AN line that comes off the fuel rail and goes down, and this fitting will connect it, this end will connect to that hard line. So this will not change in length. I'm just going to run this. I'm going to connect that to there and run this down right here between the back of the motor and the firewall, and that way I can run it kind of along that hard fuel line there and kind of mark it and see where I need to actually cut it. Look at that. Oh no, I forgot the dig gasket. Oh my goodness. All right, the next step in the exhaust piece will be, or the exhaust puzzle will be this piece. The exhaust header is 4 down into 2 and then goes from 2 into 1 3-inch. So those two will meet up to the header that I just installed. It came with the gasket and the hardware to install it. We've already installed the Haltech, or I should say Bosch wideband sensor that goes to the Haltech. So just offer that up to the car on the underneath side. Tighten everything down. Let's take a moment and mark a few things off the list. Fuel, done. Intake, done. Throttle cable is not done. I've got one on the way, actually, because you have to modify the throttle cable, as I said before. And I ended up buying a brand new Mazda one because the adjustable hardware on the end will look really nice and shiny with the nice shiny throttle body. So we'll modify that when it gets here. Should be here soon. Spark plugs, coil packs. Not doing a radiator just yet. I've got some piping ordered for the coolant to go from the back of the motor to the front. So we'll take care of that here soon. And then wiring. Oh, I don't want to mark it off just yet because we're super close, but a few more tests to go, and then we'll be able to mark off wiring, plumbing, and radiator. Start this thing. Getting there. All right, we got the battery hooked up. He's finishing tightening that up, so now we check and see if we have power to things. You have it back there? All right. Oh, that's a good sign. We got a beep.
All right, hit the brake pedal.
Brake check.
All three. Hit me
Oh, we got brake lights. What?
a left blinker. Ignition forward. Left blinker.
Got power to the stereo.
Okay.
All right, so we verified that we have power to everything that's non-ECU related. Headlights are coming on, brakes are coming on. The only thing that's not working is the blinker for some reason and the flashers. But if I turn on like the parking lights, the light lights up. We're just not getting the blink. So we need to troubleshoot that and figure out what's going on there. Okay, so I do have a tune on here already from K-Power Industries. They provide a bass tune. Haltech provides a bass tune as well for the K24, but the one I have on here should be a good tune to work with the intake and exhaust that I have from K-Power, so it should be drivable from the get-go, and then we'll actually do a tune at some point as well, but to get the most out of it. So I think we're ready though.
Power on.
First of all, we'll power on and see if I saw a light flash.
Yeah.
Fuel pump. What was that noise?
That was your fuel pump.
Well, I know. See if we have fuel pressure up there.
I bet we do.
That was a weird noise.
Oh yeah, you got 51 pressures.
We have fuel pressure. Yes.
All right, let me have the light so I can check for fuel leakage.
Dude, already a good sign. We have.
Let me make sure we're not pouring fuel everywhere. I'm not smelling it. But...
I'm gonna hit cancel for a second because I feel like I need to update the firmware on that first.
You got some attention icons on the right.
Yeah. I'm going to ignore those for now until I get the actual map uploaded.
See if they clear.
Now's the time to upload or upgrade the firmware on that device because I don't have the map on there. We haven't turned anything on yet. Like it's there's nothing to overwrite or nothing like that. So.
Right on.
I don't know. Use existing.
The light changing. So you're writing a tune now?
It's already done.
Oh, cool. What was
Battery voltage, air tape. Now it says 51 degrees. That sounds more accurate.
do we have
That
the
feels
right
more.
displacement?
Huh?
Do we have the right displacement?
Yeah, 2.4. Yeah, so this is the right. So what's this? Device reboot required. Click to reboot. Okay. Rebooting. I gotta say, I mean, it's cool
Yeah.
that I'm controlling the car from the laptop right now. I found a very small fuel leak. Is it just the where the AM fitting comes in the back?
Yeah, it's just damp though.
Yeah, I get it. Grab a wrench and just snug it up just a tiny little bit.
Alright.
Happy?
Yeah, just tight as I'm gonna get it. Stop turning it up.
All right, only one way to find out. Let's see what it does.
Turn it over.
Starter engages. Hell yeah!
Yeah, good. Sounds strong to me.
Referenced it does. Should that be doing that?
I don't know. That might have something to do with it being jumped, dude.
With being what?
The starter and the alternators being jumped.
Oh, maybe. Success! It turned over, dude. We got fuel pressure.
No knock, knock, knock.
We can't tell if we have oil pressure necessarily. It feels like we do, just based on, but the sensor's reading kind of wonky. So we need to figure that out. Double check the throttle and just make sure it's actually doing something. Okay, we're good. All right. Finally to the point where we can try and start this car. Just got to turn on the injectors. They're now on. Reboot the ECU. The car should start. It's all you, man. Clutch in, by the way. Crank it. Hopefully it starts. If Carl sees anything out there out of the ordinary, shut it off immediately. If I see anything on here, shut it off. Do it. Dude! Oh! Thank you, man. Woo! Holy shit, it's running.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you, man. Dude, it fired right up. Whoo! We did it. Dude. I'm so stoked. This thing actually fired, and it fired right up on the first try. And that is... We were talking about this a little bit. The group of people that were here are some local neighbors, some car guys, and my family. And we were just talking about like, you know, on YouTube when you watch an engine swap and stuff like that, it's usually like a weekend project or a single video or something like that. That's because those guys have the money on hand to buy all the parts. They have the experience of doing a swap already. They've got a crew of guys who know what they're doing. And yeah, they can do it in a weekend, or it takes a little bit longer and they condense it down to a quick video, etc. In reality, when you're a DIYer like us and you've never done it before, and you've got to spread the cost out because this is an expensive endeavor. We pulled this car in November of last year, so 2023, for the last time, and that's when we started pulling the engine and stuff. So it's been, as of right now, it's mid-December, it's been 13 months from tear it down to start it for the first time. And for someone with a day job and you know, having to spread the cost out and things like that, that's a reality for the timeline. That's just how it works. Stoked to be here though. Engine started. Next step is finish the coolant so that we can run this up to temperature and make sure there's no leaks in all the other tests. And then we got to build the exhaust. MT and I are gonna, and Carl is gonna build the exhaust from scratch from the pipe that we put in back. And then after that, take it to the dyno and get it tuned and do some driving. So a few more months and this thing will actually be on the road. And I also feel like we can mark a few more things off the list. Throttle cable, done. Radiator's not done yet. Wiring is done. Plumbing is not done. So we got to do plumbing and radiators, all the same things. I'm just going to mark that off because that's part of the plumbing. So get the plumbing done, do some testing, and then dyno day. Oh, whoops. Thank you so much for watching the series up to this point. Stay tuned and subscribe so that you don't miss the next couple of videos, because it's going to be awesome, because we're going to finally be able to get this thing out on the road and take it for a spin and then do all the fun stuff like autocross, track days, back roads, smoking. Sorry, Carl, we're going to smoke the Subaru that you have, things like that. So like and subscribe, as they say.
Hey, hey, hey.